Keep in mind that we need a solid definition of purgatory in order to assess how ancient that doctrine is and how it's developed over time. So here is how the Catechism describes the doctrine of purgatory. All who die in God's grace and friendship, but still imperfectly purified, are indeed assured of their eternal salvation. But after death they undergo purification, so as to achieve the holiness necessary to enter the joy of heaven. The Church gives the name purgatory to this final purification of the elect. Notice that the Catechism also doesn't talk about punishment. It talks about purification, but I'll mention that a little bit later. C.S. Lewis rejected what he considered to be the Catholic formulation of purgatory, especially the idea of punishment for sin.
I'm just trying to help us get an accurate picture of what we're talking about and what the Protestant concerns were in historical context. Because today, people will often try to make purgatory sound reasonable by just putting it like this. Hey, look, you're not going to be perfect, probably, when you die. You have to get made perfect before you go into heaven. And people think, well, that sounds kind of reasonable, right? But that really isn't accurate because purgatory in Roman Catholic theology has so much more going on with it. First of all, the sufferings of purgatory are not just for cleansing from sin. They are for paying for sin. So now this is understood, and again, trying to be very accurate and fair and careful, this is understood as temporal punishment. We still have temporal punishments, potentially, that we have to endure in this life and in the next. Now, whether you accept that distinction or not between temporal punishment and eternal punishment, the point is, the suffering of purgatory is not merely cleansing and medicinal. The suffering of purgatory is punitive and expiatory, okay? Punitive means it delivers punishment, and expiatory means it effects atonement, or it extinguishes guilt. Here's how it's put at Vatican II. Quote, "The truth has been divinely revealed that sins are followed by punishments. God's holiness and justice inflict them. Sins must be expiated. This may be done on this earth through the sorrows, miseries, and trials of this life, and above all through death. Otherwise, the expiation must be made in the next life through fire and torments or purifying punishments." So you can see there, even in the very language, it's called purifying punishments.
The Church's theology has developed over time in understanding the nature of this punishment. For example, consider the doctrine of hell. You can see in church history before the modern age, Christian authors don't pull any punches about what hell is like. Fire, brimstone, ironic, horrifying punishments. When you get to the modern age, theologians tend to describe hell more as a state of being isolated from God, and they tend to treat the biblical descriptions more metaphorically. They say that hell isn't a place where people are arbitrarily punished by different means, but that hell is more the condition of being separated from God. The Catechism also doesn't talk about punishment.
Both purgatory and indulgences are intercorrelated theories, unwitnessed in the Bible or in the ancient church. The church lived for 1,500 years without such a theory.
The Catechism also doesn't talk about punishment. It talks about purification. The Catechism also doesn't talk about punishment. It talks about purification. The Catechism also doesn't talk about punishment. It talks about purification. The Catechism also doesn't talk about punishment.